Hello and happy National Championship Game Monday. Welcome into Big Talk College Sports with a Midwest perspective, blue collar and blue blood. I am your host, Sam Sprunger. Right there. See, just right there. Tony Hollinsworth. Tony, it is Championship Monday.
It is where champions are made. Isn't there a song for that?
I don't know. Is there?
There's got to be. Oh yeah, We Are the Champions by Queen. I mean, they can play that. Look at that.
Well, but you probably shouldn't come out to that in the championship game.
I feel like that'd be a power move, honestly. Like you just come out saying "We Are the Champions," and everybody's like, I don't know if I can argue with that now. They already have the song. They've already come out to it. What
They've
do we do
already
now?
said they're the best. I don't know what we do about it. Yeah,
Ultimate power move.
Yeah, that would be awful. That would be awful bold. Some big stones, so to speak.
But some major cojones.
Tonight, the 5th-seeded Notre Dame Fighting Irish play the number 6-seeded Ohio State Buckeyes. The Buckeyes are an 8-point favorite. 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ESPN at the Mercedes-Benz Dome in Atlanta, Georgia. Tony, it's finally here.
It is. And funny enough, tickets are as low as $1,600. So if you just want to
give me six,
if you just want to not deal with your mortgage payment for like half a year, hey, just go and take a trip on down there to Atlanta.
And people say, well, it only happens once. Well, if the way Ohio State expects it, they expect it every year. You're going to be able to afford and 1,600, Tony. Those are the cheap ones.
Oh yeah, those are nosebleeds.
Those are your backs against the outside wall.
You're probably still watching the game on the TV because you really can't see it from where you're at.
Yeah, you're looking at the jumbotron that runs all the way around the outer rim of the stadium to see what's actually happening.
Or on your phone, either one. Like, oh no, he got it. Okay, we're on like a 10-second delay.
The only plus about spending $1,600 for a ticket, Tony, is you can actually get Chick-fil-A at a game at the Mercedes-Benz Dome, the national championship game, because normally, even though most of the games that the Falcons play, it's on Sunday, the Chick-fil-A is not open. So Be happy that you can have a Chick-fil-A and watch the national championship game.
And fun fact, Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta has actually some of the cheapest food and beverage prices out of all the stadiums in the stadium.
Intentionally, because he said we are going to charge a rather large amount of money for people to come. We don't want them to also have to spend a ton of money on top of their ticket price for their concessions. So like $3 for a hot dog. Now it's still $3 for a bun and a hot dog made of mystery meat, but it's $3 rather than $10.
Oh yeah, and plus, if I'm being honest, if I have to pay $200-300 a head for tickets, and then I go there, it's like, I don't want to spend $15 on a little bowl of nachos. Like, I can get a hot dog for $3 and large liter drink for like two. Yeah, I'd take that.
Heck yeah. Well, let's get to the game instead of talking about concessions, because everybody can tell I like concessions. Okay,
come on, man, it's breakfast.
But what are your thoughts on the? I mean, have you wavered any from the Ohio State pedestal that you and I both kind of jumped on really early in this tournament? Did anything that Texas did the other day, in the Cotton Bowl, make you change your mind?
Again, the only thing that would make me worry, and it's the same worry I had against Texas, that I feel is what they're going to go in with against Notre Dame, is the only people to me right now that can stop Ohio State is Ohio State itself. And I don't know if we maybe necessarily saw it in the Cotton Bowl against Texas, of them getting maybe a little bit too cocky for themselves. Like you said, there was at no point where I felt that Ohio State wasn't in control of the game. Obviously, they led the entire way. Texas would come back and tie it, but Texas never had the lead whatsoever. Ohio State kept it. But there was a couple times there where Texas would go down, they would tie, and obviously all the way to the very end until Jack Sawyer got the strip sack fumble and returned it for 6. I thought, Texas might be able to tie it and at least send it in overtime and keep it close. That's the only thing to me that maybe might trip Ohio State up. Now, the benefit is, again, at least on paper, as far as overall team talent, Ohio State should have the edge against Notre Dame. But I would say for Notre Dame, they're playing with a lot less to lose than Ohio State. Now, I know we talked about the security of Ryan Day's job. What does it look like?
Yeah.
Again, you even made the comment. You wouldn't be surprised if he wins the national title if he loses to Michigan next year. If they're not like, okay, yeah, you want us a national title, you're fired, bud. Like
I think they do it before the tournament.
100%, 100%.
They wouldn't wait.
No, so to me, I feel like Ohio State has more to lose, so they might be playing a little bit more of an edge, but it's also dangerous when you're playing another team that's like, yeah, we don't really have anything to lose. We have a lot to prove. We have a lot to prove in the fact of, no, we don't need a conference. We're getting all of this money by ourselves. And the fact that we lost to Northern Illinois and we're still here and that we're still supposed to be considered one of the best teams in college football right now. And if we're able to beat essentially what has been the hottest team in college football for the last month, then that's really going to solidify our statement and our powerhouse that we absolutely belong here and we are one of the best teams.
Well, the two both enter this game as two of the top defenses in the country, and we've talked about this the past few weeks. I really think Ohio State's gotten better defensively over the course of the time from the start. And you know what? They didn't play, excuse me, a horribly bad game defensively against Michigan, but we're going to throw that out since they lost.
No.
But we're going to, I mean, really seriously, they played a good defensive game, and I say that with the all seriousness. Even though they gave up 31 points to Oregon, they played a pretty good defensive game against Oregon because their offense was able to keep them paced with the Oregon offense, and that was their one loss that really I wouldn't consider that a bad loss.
Yeah.
Now it turns out that the Michigan one, all intents and purposes, was not a bad loss either. They got to miss the Big Ten championship. They still got into the tournament. Now they got the raw deal of the draw.
Yeah.
But when I'm still convinced that the Buckeyes sandbagged a good portion of the year and gave a very vanilla outlook for everybody that would possibly play them in the tournament. And by the time they showed their hand against Tennessee, there wasn't enough time to prepare for them.
Yeah.
And that might be why Texas was a little bit more prepared for them. Not to say that Texas wouldn't be able to compete with Ohio State anyway, but I think, hey, we had 2 weeks of what they're doing now to prepare. But the Buckeyes still have a solid defense. That I'm sorry, they're to me they're a better defense than Notre Dame.
No, I definitely agree, and I do kind of wonder too after that Michigan loss of did Ryan Day and Chip Kelly both come back and look at it, especially Ryan Day, because you think about all the heat that he got after that Michigan loss of look, you guys were extremely favored. It's at home in Columbus. Like this is all set up for you to get the perfect revenge tour. Michigan State is having an extremely down year after winning the national championship. They lost all that talent.
Michigan, you mean?
Michigan. They lost all that talent to the transfer portal, to the NFL and the draft and whatnot. And this is perfectly set up for Ohio State to win it, and they lose in just horrible fashion. It didn't seem like they really did anything well as far as that whole entire game goes. So it does make you wonder if Ryan Kelly combined together, that's who they make. If Ryan Day didn't come to Chip Kelly and say, look, man, my job is on the line. And if my job is on the line, more than likely your job is probably going to be on the line.
I bet not.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, because you have to think too, for a lot of those Ohio State fans with how poorly Ohio State did offensively, I bet a lot of Ohio State fans would have revolted if they said, you know what, Ryan, you're out. Chip, you're the new head coach. Oh, I think Ohio State fans would have lost it. That would have been ugly.
The Michigan game is one of the pieces that makes me absolutely think that they were playing a very straight up vanilla game plan, because they took the bait and just kept trying to run it up the middle. And they're like, well, you know what? We're a really good running team. I mean, look at what they've got running for crying out loud. They've got
Right.
Travion Henderson, Quashawn Judkins, both at 960 plus on the yards. Now after that, there's a couple that have over 100 yards, and that's it. One being Will Howard, but you got to remember every time he's sacked, that's a loss of
A loss of
rushing
yardage, yeah.
But they have two 1,000-yard rushers. They are very good at running the ball. They've got a double, two-headed monster that can run the ball. They've run for over 25, almost 2,500 yards. They've passed for almost 4.
Yeah.
Now that means that they're more of a passing team, but you know what? They know how to run the ball too. And if they establish either or both Henderson and Judkins, I think Notre Dame's in for a very long night if that happens, because if they're doing that, that means it opens up the passing game.
Yeah. And I think too, much to your point with what Ohio State does well, we talked about it even last week when we were talking about Notre Dame and how well they've done. Now, Notre Dame is great at running the ball. They've rushed for 3,100 yards collectively between the team, and that's between Jeremiah Love and Riley Leonard and Jadarian Price, primarily those three. Now, passing wise, they've just squeaked over 2,900 yards passing. 2,600 of that coming from Riley Leonard this season. Whereas it's going to sound weird because Ohio State isn't necessarily quote unquote balanced, but like you said, they have 2 rushers almost at 1,000 yards on the season. And then receiving wise, you've got Jeremiah Smith, who's over 1,000 yards. He has 14 receiving touchdowns. And then you have Emeka Ibuka, who is 53 yards away. No, 53 yards away. Sorry, I can't math. 53 yards away from 1,000 yards and 10 receiving touchdowns. So where, if Ohio State just stops Notre Dame's run game, that's kind of it for Notre Dame. If Notre Dame is able to stop Ohio State's run game, okay, we'll have fun trying to cover Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka, because that's not going to end well for you. Because, and it is kind of funny, and I'll say this because I don't feel like he necessarily gets a lot of the love. I feel like Emeka Ibuka is such an overlooked wide receiver because of how long he's been there. But you look at all the talent that he's been around and his consistent production that he's had. He's had, Marvin Harrison Jr., Smith and Jackson Smith and Jigba, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and now Jeremiah Smith. And he is always producing and on the field there for Ohio State. And I feel like he kind of gets overlooked. And I feel like a lot of times that's what ends up biting teams in the butt, is because they overlook him when he's really a solid pass catcher.
The one thing that they can absolutely hang their hat on is if you worry about Ibuka more than anybody else, Jeremiah Smith's going to bite you. Yep. Or Carnell Tate's going to bite you.
Yep.
If you try to take Ibuka and Smith out, then Tate and Henderson and G. Scott, the tight end, they're going to catch passes. They have more than just 1 or 2 receivers. They have 4 to 5, maybe even 6, because Brandon Innes isn't a bad receiver either.
No.
But the fact remains is Will Howard has a few different ways to go to get his completion or his passes completed. If you look at the Notre Dame, you know what? We'll go ahead. We're going to take a break real quick for the audio podcast, and we'll be right back. But for video, you're just going to watch me count to 3 on my hand, and then we'll be right back. All right. We're back with the second half of Big Talk National Championship preview. What I was going to say before we went into that break, Tony, is if you look at the sides of, or the defense for Notre Dame, they gave up right at, we're going to call it 2,500 yards. They gave up 2,500 yards passing. Rushing, they gave up, we're going to call it 2,000 yards. If Ohio State can establish their run game and equally run for what they pass, Notre Dame, that means Notre Dame's best side of the football, or best part of the defense for on that football, is not doing its job. Right. And that means it's going to open up the passing game. And I'm not saying that it's absolutely going to happen this way. I just think if Ohio State's going to concentrate on establishing their run while still throwing. They're going to pick and choose. They may have the first 15 plays scripted. 10 of them may be runs.
Yeah.
Just so they can try to establish their run.
And the other thing that they do too that is an extension of that pass game is keep in mind Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins both out of the backfield as receivers are extremely good. I mean, Travion Henderson is technically fourth on Ohio State's with 284 receiving yards, and he's only got one touchdown. That was the 75-yard run.
Yep.
But
a lot
against
of times
Texas.
But a lot of times during the season, he was used as a safety valve on second and long, third, third down or whatever.
Yeah, and because they're running backs and because of their speed and power, they're able to truck through a lot of those defenders and at least get them closer as far as third and manageable goes. So that's another thing that Notre Dame has to realize of even if you shut down the run game, if Will Howard kind of drops back and goes, we're going to do a little halfback screen pass. Good luck. Have fun with that.
Well, and I think the question was raised that is Will Howard going to be, is he going to make the right decisions when it comes to these high pressure situations to where, you're in the national championship game. And let me say this, Ohio State, they picked their quarterback based on what they have in their stables and what they've seen Will Howard do.
Yep.
It wasn't just, hey, this guy looks fun, let's get him on the team. They studied to make sure that they thought that this was, and Chip Kelly knew what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Will Howard's gotten a bad rap because maybe he just was not absolutely tearing it up all during the regular season. But that lends to my, hey, we're gonna have a vanilla. I know I've said this 3 times already this show, Tony, but we're gonna play a vanilla game plan, and you're gonna have 3,000 yards.
Yeah, and I think that's what people are. They're not expecting that from Ohio State. When you think of Ohio State quarterbacks, especially within the last few years, you had J.T. Barrett, and then it went over to Dwayne Haskins. Dwayne Haskins threw for over 5,000 yards. Then it goes over to Justin Fields. Justin Fields was prolific there at Ohio State for 2 seasons. And then you have CJ Stroud come in right after him, another extremely prolific Ohio State quarterback for 2 seasons. So that's what they're used to expecting. And then you see really what I would consider a pretty massive drop off from CJ Stroud to Kyle McCord. And the sad part is Kyle McCord didn't really have a bad season with Ohio State. He still had a pretty good season. But compared to what Ohio State has been used to statistically, it's a drop off, and that's the weird part. It is.
Really? Because Kyle McCord only had one start against Michigan. Yeah, he went 0-1, but that means Justin Fields went 1-1 against him because he had 2 seasons and he split.
Right.
So, and you know what? I'm almost guarantee you they finished 11-1 Justin Fields last year and lost to Michigan.
I think so.
And then they went 11-1 with Kyle McCord. I'm just stating, I'm not arguing with you. I get what you're saying, but at the same time, that's the ridiculousness that I see with a lot of the Ohio State world is Kyle McCord went 11-1. He needs to leave.
Yep.
Seriously?
Because he lost to Michigan.
Now, technically, he was still on the team when they got beat by Missouri in the Sugar Bowl. But you know what? Half the team of Ohio State decided they weren't playing in that Sugar Bowl. So like it's an unfair assessment, and all of Missouri, the whole entire Missouri team decided they were going to play in that Sugar Bowl in order to show team unity and to have a finish to the end of the season. And they still only won by like 8.
Yeah. Well, and for them too, it was partially bragging rights to say, oh, hey, we beat Ohio State. Right. And for them, that was the big thing. But nonetheless, though,
you beat laundry is what you did.
Yes. But when I looked at Will Howard, I'm gonna be honest, when I first watched him at the beginning of the season, and maybe it's the same thing because of what I've been used to of watching Ohio State games, I'm like, yeah, this is not exactly the sexiest guy. And then to me, I think what really hurt Will Howard was that first Oregon matchup of he didn't really and maybe it was as simple as he didn't manage the clock or the time well enough, but he scrambles, gets the first down. Of course, everybody absolutely ripped him because they're like, oh, you're like Dak Prescott with Dallas with that playoff game. You try to run for a first down, you get a timeout, and you didn't have enough time to actually do that. But I mean, all things considered, the fact that they end the season, they end the regular season on a loss, and he's completely devastated. What are they going to do? What is this going to look like? He has an absolutely terrific performance against Tennessee. He does it again against Oregon, completes their ultimate revenge tour, and then he finally beat Texas, which he had never done as the starter of Kansas State. He finally gets that off of his back, being able to beat him, and leads his team to the national title. So, I mean, whether people want to admit this or not, whether they like Will Howard or not, at the end of this season, no matter what, no matter who wins, he's either going to finish with a playoff record of 3-1 or 4-0, no matter how they want to look at it or do with it. And that's going to be one of the best winning percentages that a lot of playoff quarterbacks have. And as much as people don't want to admit that, that's going to be up there as far as some of the best.
Well, you're absolutely right. He has been every bit of good for Ohio State. He hasn't been the reason why, and I don't care that it was him being up just for a split second too long against Oregon. He wasn't responsible for that loss against Oregon. Now, some would say the Michigan game, he made some very, very questionable and bad throws. You're right, he did, but he's still not the reason that they lost that game. Their kicker missed two field goals. That made a big difference.
Yep.
And instead of scoring touchdowns, they had to settle for field goals. Was that Will Howard's fault? Not necessarily.
Nope.
They couldn't run the ball against Michigan, Tony.
In all honesty, that's where I always tell people whenever they talk about it's the teams versus the refs. And don't get me wrong, have I seen refs make bad calls? Yes, but at the same time, whether it's against the refs, whether the quarterback is playing bad or not, it's a 53-man team every day, and you have at minimum you have 60 minutes of regulation time to be able to go out there, do your business, and get the win. Whether that's through running the ball, defense, whatever. Now, if you go past that 60 minutes and you have overtime, you have more chances, but nonetheless, you have 60 minutes to try to get the job done.
I have my hand raised.
I know. I'm like, okay.
I think in the NCAA world, I think you have 85 that you can play with.
Oh, yeah, I don't know why. I thought more of Annabelle.
Nonetheless, you're thinking pro, but
I am. I am thinking
but
pro.
You're absolutely right. You have everyone is together in that team. Not one person loses that game, and it's going to be very, very fun to watch this game because you've got the strong point of Notre Dame is their rushing game, and the strong point of Ohio State's defense is their run stop.
No.
What was the stat? I think it was only like 1,300 yards they've given up running. Yeah, 1,349 is all they've given up running this year. That's 700 yards less than what Notre Dame's given up. And the rushing the rushing defense is the best side of the Notre Dame defense. That's what we're looking at, and that's why I'm so convinced that Ohio State has been just toying with everybody all year, and they're like, we'll just show everybody when we get there. Now, do I think it's going to be a runaway in the game today? No. I think Ohio State wins, and honestly, I could see them winning by 2 scores, but it's going to be a late ad to make it 2 scores. You know what I mean? It's not going to be it might be a 4-point game, and they score a touchdown to make it 11, and then it's over. Right. And that's probably what I'm going to say. I'm going to say 31-20 is what Ohio State ends up winning this national championship game.
I could almost see like 31-21. I have them winning by at least 10.
Yeah. I don't doubt it, but I could also see it being a field goal. They just they're up 10 and Notre Dame scores at the end and tries to get an onside kick and doesn't get it or whatever.
Right. They say or like how we've seen a lot of games at the very end. It's okay. Notre Dame is driving down the field. What do they do? Same with how the Texas game ended. The next thing you know, they either strip sack, fumble, interception. Something that ultimately seals the game.
Yeah, it's So you're saying Ohio State by 10.
Yep.
I'm saying Ohio State by 11.
Yep.
Yep. Notre Dame's going to win by 8.
Probably. I already say I thought about that too. Is like, last time I went against the Irish, this bit me in the butt. But
I have
we'll see how
been
this
on
goes.
the Ohio State bandwagon since the brackets started.
Mhm.
And also, we have now seen, was it 6 straight lower seeds beat the higher seed. So
That's true.
That lends to Ohio State winning tonight and making it 7 in a row, lower seeds, and then we'll have the SEC screaming, "It was rigged."
It was rigged. It doesn't matter. They didn't even play a conference game. They shouldn't have been in. Alabama should have been in. Roll Tide.
I saw a post on social media that said, "Wow, the NFC North is like the SEC."
All hype, but no production.
Yeah, all sizzle, no steak. But
Yep.
all right, that brings us to the end of our national championship preview. Tony, let everybody know how they can find us, and that is accurate.
Yes, exactly. So you can find us on Facebook at Big Talk. That's B1G Talk. On Facebook, you can find us on Instagram, X, and we're back on TikTok since TikTok.
Oh, you froze up. TikTok was gone for one day.
Times a week on the All Sports All Plays Network, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And you had best believe that once this episode is done, Sam will be nice enough to upload it wherever you can get your podcasts, and you can also find it through the Lounge Sports Network as well.
You are absolutely correct. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us on this wonderful Monday. It's National Championship Day. Take your time and enjoy the pageantry, the pomp and circumstance of the event. But then at 7:30, when that ball gets kicked off, it's for realsies this time. And Notre Dame and Ohio State are going to just punch each other in the mouth back and forth up and down the field. I could really honestly see this being much like the Penn State Notre Dame game was, where it's a struggle defensively for a while, and then they're going to have a blow up, and then all of a sudden the defense is going to decide the game.
Yep.
And that's really honestly the way both Notre Dame and Ohio State's games went in the semifinals. With Notre Dame, it was 10-10 going into the fourth, and it ended up being what, 24-20? No,
21.
It was was it 24-21 or 27-24? It was 27-24.
27-24, yeah.
So like they both blew up for some points in that fourth quarter, but it was ultimately an interception and then a short drive. Special team kicks the field goal, and then of course Ohio State with the strip sack fumble on the 4th and goal from the 7-yard line, and Jack Sawyer takes it back and blows the game open, and subsequently the game was over at that point. And so the defenses really stood pat and did what they do best and won themselves each a ball game. So have fun tonight, everybody. And for Tony Hollinsworth, I'm Sam Sprunger. Enjoy the game tonight, and we'll see you Wednesday.